Ron DeSanctimonious had he's had many, I would say, inhuman moments. I think it's fair to say on screen, usually around other people. This is a different kind of inhuman. He's usually had these awkward moments where it indicates that he's never engaged with another human socially before, and then he has moments that almost come off sociopathic. And so I want to play this clip from an interview that Ron DeSantis had on Sean Hannity's show. And he's basically giving Luke his new Border Patrol policy. Brace yourselves.
We're using lethal force against the cartels.
Right.
If they're bringing fentanyl in, breaking into our country, we're going to leave them stone cold dead at the border. Trust me, they will get the message.
We will leave them stone cold dead, he says. Anyone who is in the middle on this subject, stick around. Let us talk about why that is disastrous. He is calling for extrajudicial killing at the border. No due process, no trial, no charges being filed, not even exactly knowing, did we get the right person? Was this just someone coming over to work, or were they a part of the cartel? And then killing them. We'll shoot first, ask questions later.
So here's the thing. Listen, I understand that this is, clearly based on the applause, this is going to resonate. This sentiment is going to resonate uncritically with a lot of people. And listen, there is a humanitarian crisis to one extent or another at the southern border. We are experiencing a flood of illicit drugs. There's no question about that. And people are being hurt here in the United States. But that's not an excuse for the executive branch or Border Patrol or any, law enforcement authority to suspend civil rights, to commit extrajudicial murder. And as you say, it presupposes a lie, which is that Border Patrol or whatever law enforcement branch that DeSantis intends to shoot the guns will be unerring in their judgment. And with all due respect to the best of law enforcement, that they don't have unerring judgment. Nobody does. And I don't even know where to begin, because it's such a sociopathic utterance coming from somebody who wants to be the nation's chief executive. And it's also deeply unserious. Like, can you imagine what the legal challenges would be for this? What this would do to relations between the United States and Mexico, which is one of our biggest trade partners? It's just, and then to say nothing of the lives lost. Like, where I don't even know where to begin with this. This is just such a deeply unserious sentiment to come from somebody who wants to be the president of the United States.
Unserious is a good word for it. Because, yeah, of course this will be distorted. Anyone who says what he's saying is outrageous will say, oh, so you want the fentanyl who's killing people. Of course not. The way that you address that, number one, is not by that. And number two, as we just mentioned, even if you had the stance for some reason that the charges, if you had due process, should lead to the death penalty, which obviously I'm against the death penalty. But even if you had that stance, you don't even know, as you're talking about judgment, if you're correctly assessing who's who, and they haven't had their due process. And given DeSantis' history that's sort of murky when it comes to, I think it was Guantanamo, right?
It was.
In his service and his participation in some allegedly inhumane acts, it makes some sense that this would be his stance. But it's also in line with other things he said. During the hurricane, you might remember he referenced signs that said, when the looting starts, the shooting starts. We do not loot. I don't downplay the act of looting. You should be held accountable legally. You think the punishment for looting should be death? Now, to be fair, a lot of people pulled that out of context. He was referencing what other people might do, but obviously was sort of rooting it on. It is that authoritarian stance on how we should handle these issues. If I feel, or if I want to address a particular problem quickly, it's just going to be to kill people.
Kill it. Yeah, kill it. I mean, that is the authoritarians' textbook. Like, that's their go-to solution for every problem. Just shoot it or stab it or just kill it in some way, cause it physical harm. I mean, and it's also commensurate with other aspects of his purported foreign policy, because he and other Republicans, it's not just Ron DeSantis, have endorsed, if need be, invading Mexico or attacking Mexico, effectively declaring war on Mexico, they say, in pursuit of getting the southern border under control. Deeply unserious, and I should say, and I'm sure you feel this way, Luke, but I know I'll speak for myself here. When we say unserious, you should take it seriously. Like, it's still dangerous coming from a man of that position and power and influence. It's not something that you should brush aside, but it's just an uncritical, unserious position for the world's foremost power to have as a matter of foreign policy.
It's not the utterance of the proposal of a serious governing individual who intends on trying to be an effective leader, an effective president, which is the slogan for the modern Republican Party. A whole lot of words, and those words can have dangerous implications, and then trying to follow through on the promises of those words can lead to devastating actions, as we're seeing, but not a serious governing party whatsoever. Thus, problems don't actually get solved.
It just creates more problems.
It just creates more problems. And on the border, I will say once again, we could be having a meaningful conversation about a complex issue and try to come up with and then implement somewhat complex solutions to the broader issue of the logistical and humanitarian problems we have with our southern border. So many different things contribute to that, one of them being the situation in the countries where people are migrating from. And these things are complex. A lot of smart people need to weigh in on how to properly implement different solutions. And there are proposals that are very good as to how we enhance our legal immigration system and, of course, secure border and coordinate with other countries. None of those conversations happen when you have, as you said, sociopathic proposals of, well, what if just when people came across, we just started shooting all of them? What about that? That completely gets us away from a meaningful conversation.
No, 100%. Like, why go through the effort of trying to tackle the problem in good faith, which, by the way, would require Congress. It's not just something that the president can do unilaterally. This is our immigration system, not just at the southern border, but in general. I mean, people have criticized, there are all sorts of issues with the United States immigration policy, and has been for decades, by the way. It will take a functioning, good faith Congress, a House of Representatives that's interested in more than just investigating Joe Biden's grandson or third cousin twice removed. Past a certain point, it's going to require a functioning Senate as well. And Ron DeSantis is like, that's for nerds. Instead, why don't we just shoot the problem? And that right there is another one of the many disqualifications, as far as I'm concerned, I'm sure for many others as well, that Ron DeSantis is not up for the job.
And it's conditioning. One of the things I wanted to mention previously, even when we use the term unserious, sometimes we know they won't follow through, or we are just pointing out the lack of seriousness when it comes to the intention of governing effectively. But one of the dangerous things about just the rhetoric purely by itself is it conditions the followers to demand more and more extreme things out of their leaders. And that's what we've seen, because that audience, did it go silent and shots to the faces were, what? No. Yeah. And apparently that was one of the biggest cheers that was given to Ron DeSantis.
It's the first time he's heard applause probably in weeks.
Right. And that's why he said it again, because he got a huge cheer at the debate when he used that same Stone Cold Dead. And so it also conditions the supporters of these individuals to demand more stuff like that. Thank you so much for watching. For the outro on this video, I want to plug Josiah's channel. Hit them with it, Josiah.
Hey, everybody. I appreciate you watching. You can find me at youtube.com/@ponderingpolitics. One word, pondering politics. If you like progressive commentary that focuses on coalition building with other elements of the left and calling the Republican Party out for what it's become, I hope you'll view my channel. Give me a like and subscribe and some feedback. Again, youtube.com/@ponderingpolitics. Thanks again.